Hello and welcome back to the Resonate podcast. This week, I'm excited to share a conversation that we've had with Tricia Clements from Your Biz Watchdog. She is someone that I've known for a long time now and someone that's able to give us a lot of insight when it comes to Google reviews as well as reputation management for your organization. I think she's got a lot of great content to share, and I'm excited to share it with you. Take a look. So, for those that don't yet know you, I'd love for you to just give a little bit of your background and kind of like what got you into this specific field.
Sure. So my background is a little bit unusual for quite a long time, about 23 years maybe. I worked at a real estate attorney's office, and I got to a point where I just said I want to change and do something a little bit different. And I was doing basically a social media management for clients. And from there, with technology, things change so much, and it gets hard to keep up with all the social media channels exactly what's working for every single one. And I decided that I needed to maybe pick one. What happened was with my clients at that time, I was noticing Google. At that time, it was Google My Business. Now, of course, we know it as Google Business Profile. I noticed that, the work I did on there, I was seeing more impact. And not that social media should be ignored, but I was just saying, especially when I had a small business and they had a limited budget, and it's like, okay, well, where's one place we can focus on? So I was like, well, let me focus on Google Business Profile. So that's really what I did. I just went all in with Google Business Profile and focused on that for my clients. So that's really how I got into what I'm doing now. Management of it. And then I also, one of the things that I do for a lot of my clients is my Google Business Profile Fix It services, suspensions, reinstatements, issues, just different things that come up. And with that, I always, like, one of my clients, I bring them on, I do preventative measures. you know I one of the things that's really seeing small businesses go through suspensions, reinstatements, how hard it is. And so I try to stress, you want to be prepared if you ever go through that.
Mm.
So that
Yeah.
I definitely include with my services. Reputation management, reviews, that's one of the big things. Local services ads, also do white label services for agencies as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and definitely from a perspective of all things Google Business Profile, you are always my phone a friend when it comes to those things. Like
Yeah.
anytime that there is ever a really from a very simple scenario or a seemingly simple scenario to something that is incredibly complex with regard to that area of expertise, you know that frontwards and backwards better than anybody else that I know. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear more about the things we're going to be talking about today. One of those obviously being very centered and highly around the just Google reviews in general. And so
Yeah.
obviously this is something that pertains heavily to local businesses. And so like why does that matter most right now this year in 2026?
So with reviews, they help your business build social proof, and trust. Your customers out there looking for your business, that they want to know that they can trust you. So it influences customer decisions. Another thing is improving local search visibility. So reviews are one of the more important factors that came up in White Spark's 2026 local ranking factors. So they are extremely important. They were at the top. We've got AI to think about. So AI systems read reviews and will summarize the reviews they find, answering questions in AI. Those reviews will come up. Also, if you're running local services ads, LSA, those reviews in your Google Business Profile can help with LSA visibility,
Yeah.
getting your LSA to show up higher. So, and more.
Right.
So, for sure, those are can be really important. Um, it's not a it's things change over time. So it's not like, okay, your competitor has 100 reviews, so you have to get 125 and then you can just stop. it hasn't been like that in a long time, but what the real focus on now is a steady growth over time, consistently getting reviews. So, and as far as number, I like to tell my clients is like, okay, so first start out relative to your competition. So when we're talking about a restaurant versus, let's say, a home remodeler that might have 2 to 3, 4 projects a month or less, versus a restaurant that may have hundreds or thousands a day, you just, those are different reviews. So you're not going to compare yourself to the local restaurant. You're going to compare yourself to others in your industry as far as first starting out. Okay, what do we need to, especially if you've not worked on reviews before, you want to go in and get what your competitors are getting, and then make sure you have that in place to consistently, that's the key, consistently get those new reviews. And again, that is important also for LSA if you're running those LSA ads.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and this third party reviews, which, Google's a third party. Basically, third party means not just a review you've put on your website.
Hmm.
Um, AI and Google, they want to know from somebody else
Right.
that you're good, not just you say you're good. Somebody else says you're good.
Hmm. Hmm.
So for sure. I've had in the past some business owners say, well, my primary source of business is referrals. So I don't need to worry about those reviews. That's not the way to look at it, because even if your primary source is referral, they're going to probably Google you. What are they finding? They might put it into chat gpt and say, what are we finding?
Yeah.
So that's great if you've got some good reviews, but if you've got something that you haven't dealt with, you, that's something you definitely need to think about.
Yeah, no, those are all great points. And that's interesting too from a perspective that so much of what we're now seeing in this new world of AI is that the first visitor of your website is not the human, it is the human's AI assistant that's doing the research, and it's doing it across all of the different channels. So like you mentioned that, it's nice to have reviews on your own website, but that's kind of an owned property. That's one that you have
Exactly.
control over.
You need those third party places,
Yes.
Google and then other places, not just what you put on your website. If you're a brand new company, yeah, you can put some testimonials on your site, but you've got to start getting those reviews on third party
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that there's, kind of the old way of thinking when it came to reviews and, what people were needing to do almost to kind of game the system, and that there's now some new things that people need to be paying attention to from a changes perspective in how reviews work. Like, what are some things that
Yes.
you're seeing that are going to impact businesses that are new changes that are happening?
I will tell you, there have been some big changes and big shifts in recent weeks for Google Business profile reviews. There was an article on LinkedIn from Claudia Tamina about disappearing reviews. So basically, Google has integrated AI into review moderation, deleting reviews that they think are spam, violate their policies, or they think the patterns are not normal. So that's really huge. Basically, Google filtering out your reviews. And so you really need to be aware of that. And part of that is a lot of what we're talking about is Google, but we also want to take into consideration the FTC. They have their own review guidelines. So somebody might say, well, Google's not going to find out. Well, they're the way that AI and everything is, they probably will if if you're doing something you're not supposed to. But if the FTC finds out, you could have significant fines.
Wow.
So it's not just what does your review look like and is Google taking them down? What's the FTC think about what you're doing?
Oh.
Um, and so basically, both Google and FTC, they want to see a genuine experience. They don't want to see review rating manipulation. And so that's a big part of that. looking in AI, they just basically look for unusual volumes and patterns. So one of the things is, I might talk to a client and have a short conversation and say, we're going to be putting a review system in place for you. Well, I've had to change that a little bit and say, don't do anything until we have this conversation, because in the past I've had a client say the next day say, well, you said put a review system. We were going to talk about the review system. So I emailed 200 clients asking for reviews.
Oh boy.
That's bulk, and Google does not like that. If you get a ton of reviews, high volume in a short amount of time, Google does not like that. And while they may not all go live, there's a good chance that Google will filter out and you will lose some of those reviews, maybe all of them. You just never know.
Wow.
So for sure,
Yeah.
that's definitely something that we have to look at, those reviews disappearing. And one thing is a lot of times we talk about Google Business Profile. It's like, oh, well, this is a bug in the system, they're fixing it.
Uh-huh.
This is not. This is not a bug. Basically, it's Google working as intended.
Wow. Okay.
So there are lots of other things. Basically, Google wants to make sure that the business didn't influence you to leave that review.
Okay.
So, and one of the things that I found so interesting, Claudia mentioned, was that you'll see a lot of businesses, a QR code, leave us a review.
True.
And that is something Google doesn't like on-site reviews now. So like if you're leaving that review on site, Google can pick up on that activity and doesn't like that, because they think that the business is really influencing you more than they
Okay.
want to. Now, this is a big change. So I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was discontinued. I searched it up a little bit, and it looks like it was discontinued in 2024, 2025-ish. Google used to have these things you could order. It was the Google Business Profile Marketing Kit.
Yes,
Do you
I remember that.
I remember going into businesses and I would see the QR code with the little thing up, leave us a review, and I would love it. It's like, oh, that's great. You're doing good with reviews. They said, Google sent this to us in a package.
Yeah.
And so now Google is saying those signs they sent out to you, take them down and don't get reviews that way. Well, so let me rephrase that. Google's not telling you that. These are just things that basically you shouldn't use that now.
Wow.
And it's hard to know, like, you've got Google guidelines, and a lot of this is not necessarily, well, where does it say it that this is happening in the Google guidelines? And it's not necessarily this is word for word written there. This is how Google's implementing it. And this may change over time. It's a bit fluid. We don't know exactly, because that with the sign there at the business is something very new, that had not heard before, because so many businesses did it because Google sent it to them.
Right.
So it's just very, seeing how it's actually going to play out in the real world. We just have to see, and the way some businesses operate are different than others, so you have to see how it's going to impact your business.
Yes.
You've got home services businesses, which are different, people going to your house, the plumber, the lawn care company, versus you going someplace to the local shop, the local restaurant. They're a bit different.
Uh-huh.
So we've got to see, how is this even going to play out?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's one. There's more. There's more. Last week, it was noted on LinkedIn, my friend Amy Toman found where they had actually updated Google guidelines. And so it's in writing, where basically Google says businesses can no longer ask customers to mention staff members in reviews. So if anyone's heard me speak on this before, I've told customers in the past, it was, do not incentivize customers. And then previously, SEOs like myself, we would say, but you can run contests with your staff and get them to, try to encourage them to get reviews. And then they can, if they get more reviews with their name in it, then, they'll get whatever, gift card or something like that.
Yeah.
No more. And this is a huge change, because that was something that was very common practice. You heard a lot in this industry, to do those staff incentives, not customer. Now Google is specifically saying, not only customer, do not ha- ask the customer to mention staff in reviews. So that is, to me, that was like one of a huge thing. I literally, it was like, stop everything, email all my customers, and be like, okay, if you're doing this,
Good.
don't.
Cool.
So it was pretty huge. One thing is like, how's Google going to really know? Because I will, when I had the plumber come, they did a really good job. So, I would mention, well, Stephen came out and he did a great job. And I like to mention, so that the business knows he's who came out and I had a really good, interaction. So we don't know, really how it's going to impact previous reviews. Typically, they'll start moving forward, and then they may go back in waves. We just don't know. And like, so for mine, I wasn't asked to put the name in. So, what's Google gonna do? Are they gonna take some of my reviews out that I wasn't asked?
No.
But it kind of, you don't know. Um, and how's Google going to, one of the things that I get on a lot of things when I tell businesses is like, well, make sure you don't do this or that. Well, how is Google going to know? You've got the filter, the algorithm, the AI detecting patterns, but there's also something different. I am a what's called Google local guide. So if you're on Maps and you're leaving reviews, you have the chance to sign up and be what's called a local guide. And if you're a business owner, I definitely encourage you to sign up, so you can just see what questions Google, in the last year, a couple of years, Google is asking a lot more questions of Google Guides. They usually always ask questions, but it's a lot more. So, for instance, one of the things that I saw online was, somebody said that Google had asked a local guide, did the business offer a reward for you to leave a review?
Ah,
Oh, so Google, so these are some questions. So that would be incentivizing the customer.
right.
So, well, then I'm taking it in my mind, well, Google, the next step could be, did the business ask you to put someone's staff's name in it? Did the business ask you to talk about a specific thing? So you just don't know. And, but that is one of the things, that's one of the, long list of things that Google uses to check it.
Oh,
And you just don't know what questions are going to come up on there and until you see it.
right. Oh my
So
gosh.
That's
yeah.
that's wild. And there's
When I saw it, I was like, oh, because I always get the question, I'm like, don't run contests where it's like, leave us a review and we'll put your name in the hat for this gift basket. And I'm like, please don't do that. And well, how's Google ever going to know? Well, they've asked if you're being incentivized at all.
yeah.
So you just,
Yeah.
Google has other ways and patterns and everything that it watches, but now, they are watching
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and I think the other side to that too is that those different pattern recognition components and the filters that are being put in place are going to be a little bit, at least what we've found is that they err on the side of being more heavy-handed than they are on being light in those regards. So if there's
Exactly.
any signal at all of that kind of thing happening, it's like, zoop, nope, we're taking that one
Mhm.
off.
Yes,
So
exactly. And that's that, like you said, that's the bad part. It's like, even a legitimate review that did not violate any of these guidelines and policies that Google has in place, you could get trapped in that filter
Yeah.
and you could get filtered out.
Yeah. Oh,
So
well,
definitely.
you mentioned one of the things earlier in the conversation about just kind of like what a good review strategy should be. And so, like,
Yeah.
that you talk through this and kind of walk through with your clients what, don't go tomorrow and send out to your whole lead list, send me a review. Because
Mhm.
you're going to get flagged with that being this bulk
Yeah,
kind of a review effort. What
for
are,
sure.
what are the things that businesses can do now that would help to really keep as many of those reviews as they get?
Sure. So the first thing they need to basically get a system in place. And by that, I mean a full automated follow-up system. A lot of people say, well, yes, I'll ask in person and then I'll follow up by email and this and then it doesn't get done. It is best to put that automated system in place. So number one, you have the in-person ask, asking to them to leave that review. And the one thing that is a little bit difficult is Google now not wanting people to leave reviews while they're on the premises. So, whether it's maybe handing them their receipt and making sure it's got something so that they then take it and then get home with it. And because in the past it's always been like, oh, frictionless, they need to have that going right to where they leave a review. So we're kind of at a point where right now that's how it's been done for years and years. And as far as like what link to use, personally, I will probably still use that link that takes them right to the review and see if they get filtered out more, see what happens. If we need to update that, because like I said, this is very fluid happening right now. So we don't for 100% sure know exactly how Google's going to react based on what link we're giving them to use.
Mhm.
But we are seeing Google filter them out if you're taking them right to your Google Business Profile for where the review place pops up.
Yeah.
So that's something we kind of have to watch, and it could be, like I said, it could be more based on the industry you're in. We're just not sure yet what that is. But the follow-up system is really important.
Mm.
A lot of times you have every intention of leaving the review, and then you forget. You get, something happens, the phone rings, and you're off doing something else. Having that automated, like we talked about, if you've got a group of customers, not to send it in a bulk, sending it in a drip campaign if you've got that list. And with that, as far as talking about bulk, a lot of businesses will have events, trying not to like have a thing leave us a review at the event, because Google will see that a large influx in a short time period.
Wow.
um, and that can be difficult. There are businesses that their business is having a weekly event,
Mhm.
so on that day they're gonna generally get it. So we'll see how Google responds to that.
Yeah.
um, but again, the follow-up system, many of us today prefer texting, so I like to have the first follow-up be a text, and after that, be an email a couple days after that. You've got to be careful about texting. There is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. You and again, this is not legal advice. Consult your attorney. But you need to watch out. You've got to have specific language. You cannot just text someone because they're your customer and they gave you their cell number. Typically, the way it works is you'll want to have on your intake form, language, and there's like a checkbox. That checkbox cannot be pre-checked. Um, and so they've got to approve it, and it's got to say in there that they're approving, accepting these text messages for marketing and other, and reviews and other purposes, not just direct communication.
Mm.
So that's really important. And again, this is the government, so because of that, violations could be 500 to 1,500 per text.
Wow.
If you're putting that in place, you need to make sure you're doing that properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow, yeah. Oh, that definitely I can see how having a system in place that will help to automate a lot of those pieces takes a lot
yeah,
of the guesswork out of it. It also gets rid of the need for you to have to constantly be remembering, and just, takes a lot of the human components of it out of for them not being able to do it. They're too busy. They don't have enough going, too much is going on. They don't have the enough staff to be able to help
Mhm.
manage that. So
Yeah.
yeah, having the automation component in place, and um, yeah, that piece, without getting into the tools, because the tools obviously
Mhm.
change. I think
Mhm.
that methodology in and of itself is very, very helpful. Um,
Yeah. That's a piece that I think a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, they forget, or they think it's not quite as important, and it really is.
Okay.
Getting that review automation, requesting follow-up request in place is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, sure. And there, and along with that, I have a lot of do's and don'ts for reviews. Um,
Okay.
reply to all reviews, even the negative reviews, but the reply is really for your future customers.
yes,
And
love
I'll
that.
give you an example. Um, Personal example. I said I'm a Google guide, and if you looked at my Google account on the map, there's all kinds of saved things. It's a big hot mess. One of those things was a local ice cream shop, because my dog Moxie, she loves her pup cups, and I save all these places for Moxie to get her pup cups. And I had a place saved on there to take her to, and I looked at their reviews and I said, okay, they look good. And then all of a sudden I saw a negative review. And I was like, that didn't dissuade me from going. It was the review response that said, and I looked at all of their review responses to negative reviews, and a majority of them said, this is a fake review. You're a competitor.
Yeah.
And I said, Moxie, there are lots of places we can get pup cups. And I can tell you she has been to most of them, because I have uploaded lots of pictures and videos of her in reviews at places. But those are things like, it gave, as someone looking to go there, it was just a bad feeling. It's
Why
just
that?
like, and the thing is, when you respond to a review, typically, that if they're looking at their email, they'll get an email saying, this business responded to you.
Yeah.
So then when you looked at their review, they had their review, and then they updated it and said, I'm not a competitor. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh boy.
So it was really very bad look.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
I've
yeah.
I've seen that too, where it's interesting how you mentioned that, because that's something that we definitely coach our clients on, is make sure that you are responding to everything, and you're also, it's how you address the bad reviews that are going
Mhm.
to win over more people.
Yeah.
And having those folks uh, that you can clearly show, like, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to leave this review. We're going to use it as an opportunity for us to improve our level of service, and we'd love to have you come back again and let us
Yeah.
prove to you that we can do that.
Definitely, for sure. And that's something too, like, I focus and say, it's for future customers. You could win your review response can win that customer back, and have they might change their mind and change that review.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
So,
and in the
yeah,
same way, when you see someone who responds to a bad review, or I've seen people on Facebook or Instagram screenshot a bad review and then flame the person publicly, and like, that's
yeah,
not a good look. Like, those are places that I don't want to support, because I just don't
that
love that negative energy.
exactly. And like I say, I leave so many local, reviews for businesses, because I know how important they can be, and I will, like I said, upload pictures and videos on there. So when you hit something like that, it's just like, oof. A lot of times people will. I know I personally do this. If I'm looking at reviews, you can sort them, and you can sort from the newest, the most relevant, or the lowest review. So you can see what the business responds. And I kind of do that and say, what kind of business is this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
for
yeah,
sure, for
it's
sure.
obviously it's easy to respond and operate when things are going really well, but to be able
Yeah,
to really understand how a business works when things didn't go right,
sure.
that piece of it to me is the most interesting. And I think, to your point, I think those are the reviews that I read the most. Like I
Yeah,
want to see what the one stars are, not only for the experience itself, but also to see how the business responded to it, how they tried to, remedy the situation or not. And
yeah,
it gives you a good sense of the kind of individuals that are behind it and what the corporate culture is like, you know?
definitely. Yes, most definitely, for sure. Um, and also, while we're talking about review replies, one of the things that I don't mention, or I haven't heard a lot talk about lately, are businesses that are subject to HIPAA.
Okay.
So they have a specific rules, regulations, government things they have to abide by. And one of the kind of the gist of it is that even if someone leaves a review and says that they were a patient and broke my arm and you fixed it, thanks so much, the business cannot even respond and acknowledge that you're a patient.
Oh, wow.
And that is definitely, I still see that time and time again, when looking at different things. So businesses, while we're talking about replying to reviews, if you are subject to HIPAA, you need to be very specific, especially negative reviews. You cannot in any way acknowledge that they're a patient because of HIPAA.
Wow.
So you have a whole set of different things to consider. So
That's very helpful to know that, because I think that that's probably something that most individuals don't know.
yeah, yeah. I've had businesses that I've worked with, and I start looking, I come on and I'm looking at things. I said, well, number one thing we need to talk about is your review replies. And they said, well, we thought everything was good. We responded nice. I'm like, but you're subject to HIPAA. And again, not an attorney, definitely look these up. But it is a real thing, and businesses have gotten into trouble. So just if you're subject to HIPAA, be aware
Yeah.
for sure. So I will say, we were talking about earlier reviews disappearing.
Yeah.
One of the things I do like to do with my clients is document. And I've been doing this for a couple years now, and primarily because of the work that I do with my Google Business Profile reinstatement and things. I like to document everything and be prepared. And so one of the things I work with my clients, are also just businesses that are coming to look for help. I have my GBP protector, and basically, getting copies of all the reviews, all the pertinent information. I typically I'll do it one time, and then for clients ongoing. So that's something to definitely have, because if you have some missing reviews and you think, well, this review doesn't violate any of the guidelines, we didn't do anything wrong, you can reach out to Google and ask that those reviews be added back. Now, your success rate, I'm not sure, especially with how Google's working lately, but you can ask.
Right.
However, if you have no documentation, we won't get far up.
Me.
You have to at least have that documentation. So that's one of the things, making sure we've got all the information, links to the review, links to the reviewer, who left it, what they said, all that information, making sure that we're documenting it. Also, for Google Business Profile, all the issues and things, getting together their business documentation, making sure all of that's in place and everything. So getting that documentation can possibly help with some disappearing reviews. But you need to be aware it's Google, and with the way things are moving right now, we don't know, but at least having that is something that I would recommend
Yeah.
doing for sure.
That is something that you've definitely helped us with in the past, just kind of working through what that process should be. And
Mhm.
we have, as a result, been successful at getting some of those reviews back. But like you said,
Mhm.
success rate is definitely slimmer than you would like it to be, especially with a small business. It's working so hard to do things the right
Yeah,
way and to capture
exactly.
experiences for people and do it in a way where is benefiting individuals. And then all of a sudden, the you get notifications of reviews that have arrived. You don't get any notifications of reviews that have gone away. All of a sudden, you just go into
Exactly.
your profile and you say, "Wait a minute, I thought I had 80 reviews and now I have 78. What happened?" So
Yeah. You're lucky if you only have 78. It could drop down to 60. So yeah, I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
That stuff, and that's kind of over time, Google does go back through older reviews and remove things.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing for sure.
so
So
for those people that have for someone who's noticed that happening, what is the typical process or what would you recommend that they do? They didn't have a process in place. So
mhm.
now they've noticed that reviews are gone and they're like, I don't even know what reviews were there.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, is if they didn't have any documentation at all and they don't remember, have any idea. If they're in that situation, going to Google and just saying, I've lost reviews, Google will say, well, tell us about those lost reviews,
Ah,
and you're not going to have. So that's why you need to be proactive,
yes.
and making sure that you're working on getting those, review documentation.
Yeah.
You can also, when you get those emails from Google, you have a review, don't delete it. Now they can be helpful. A lot of times they don't have the full review and you don't have the full information, but they can be helpful. That's one of the things I tell clients: don't delete those. I know, like, a lot of people like to clear out their inbox, but put those in a folder, your review folder.
Uh,
They come in, you responded, put them in that review folder.
yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that definitely
yeah,
helps to safeguard in
yeah.
the future, especially with as hard as you work for getting good reviews. So,
Yeah, and if by chance they didn't, delete them, they can search their email box for them, to see if they have any old emails from them
Yeah.
that disappeared.
Okay.
So, for
Okay.
sure. So, yeah,
Wow.
but, yeah. I know we talked about a lot of the do's. So there obviously I've mentioned hit on a couple of the don't do for reviews,
Yeah.
and basically I want to go through a couple of things. Make sure you're not doing. And when we think about this, Google can remove your reviews. The FTC can fine you. You want to avoid both of those.
Yeah.
Sometimes with the review filter, you can't help it. They both want to see real world experience. So, like we talked about, no bulk review request, no review gating, and like I still see this happening. Another thing is, don't go to Chat GPT for a review strategy. I had a client come to me recently and said that they had asked Chat GPT how they should set their review strategy up.
Okay.
And they said, well, ChatGPT said I should do this. And basically, it was review gating, where they said, ask them if they had a good experience and only send those people review requests. I said, please don't listen to ChatGPT.
Uh,
This is called review gating.
I can.
And the client followed up with ChatGPT and said, you told me to review gate. And ChatGPT says, oops, yeah, we should have told you that.
Oh boy.
Um, you know, as we all know, AI can be wrong.
Yes.
So while you're looking at your review strategy and process, please don't depend on ChatGPT to give you correct information, especially with how Google is working now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was a I heard that, I'm like, they told you what?
Uh,
But
um,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, And just to kind of go through a few things we've talked about as far as don't do for your reviews. No more review signage at your business. Get that review system in place. Even though Google used to hand them out, if it's at your business, Google doesn't want you asking on your premises. No incentivized customer or staff. That's huge. That's a big one that just really, kind of turn things a bit upside down. No fake biased reviews. Those are friends, families, things like that. One of the things that it's probably hard for Google to tell, but you never know what kind of questions Google's going to ask. You just want to ask someone to leave you a review. You don't want to say, if you had a good experience, please leave us a review. It's a just that if you had, it's kind of like the review getting, well, if you had it, then leave a review. How is Google going to know? I don't know, but I just err on the side of we want to keep our reviews, so just don't do
Mm.
that. And so basically, it is just important to make sure you know these things, that you're not doing them, and not think, well, I should be able to get away with this. With the way that Google recognizes the patterns and everything, you definitely want to err on the side of caution.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a great set of tips there. Because yeah, I think a lot of these things are just we don't know enough about how to do this correctly. It feels like work. It feels like something that it takes us out of what our normal day to day is. So we would
Mhm.
choose the path of least resistance, or if we know how we feel about leaving reviews, that we would only do it
Mhm.
if it's either really, really good or really, really bad.
Really, really good.
that
Sure.
that somebody wants to say, "Well, let me just incentivize this for you just to make this a
Mhm.
little bit easier so that I know that it's a pain, but if you do this, we'll go ahead and give you a free dessert, or we'll go ahead and,
Mhm.
take 10% off your bill," or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. And so, not necessarily that they're trying to do anything wrong. They're just almost trying to lighten the burden on the individual, but
Yeah.
in that case, they're
Yes.
actually, creating
They know how
challenges.
important reviews are, so they're like, "I need to get some reviews."
Yeah.
Then I have, a one case where I talked to, a business, and they were a little bit the opposite. It was like, "Well, I don't wanna get negative reviews, so I'm just not gonna ask for a review."
Wow.
That is
Wow.
that you need a process, and it's not they had a, great service, but it's like you need to ask.
Yeah.
You need to ask.
Yeah.
That's the only if you ask, you'll get reviews. If you don't ask, you won't get many reviews,
Right. Yeah, and
if
it's
any.
it's a trust signal too. I mean, if somebody sees that a business doesn't have any reviews, but they can see their Google Business Profile in place, then there's a
Mhm.
question that seeds doubt for someone of,
Yes,
well, why is that? Like every business has reviews if they have a profile. Like, why does your
yeah,
not?
and a lot of times on Google, it will show how many years you've been in business for. So it's like, well, they've been in business for this number of years and they have one review. Why is that?
Is
So,
that yeah.
yeah, for sure,
Oh my
for
gosh.
sure.
All this stuff is it's constantly changing and evolving, but having individuals like you that are like have your ear to the tracks on it it makes all of it so much easier. Um, and there's definitely been some amazing gotchas in here with the things
Yeah,
that you've been talking about. We I know we've covered a lot of different things here, but like from a perspective of like the insider tips and the strategies, and like what are the things that like for you, like if people are wanting to really step their game up when it comes to reviews, what's your secret sauce here that we need to be thinking
sure.
about?
So I think a lot of it just goes back to how things are changing with search and AI. And I do have one thing that I just discovered within the last week and a half, and that I want to talk to you about. We've talked a lot about Google Business Profile, Google reviews.
Yes.
This is a little bit off from that, but it's about reviews.
Okay.
Um, when I mentioned, I will, when I work with businesses, look at their digital footprint. You know, what does that business look like online? What are the search results? What's coming up for that business? What does AI say about that business? What am I finding? Is it accurate? Do they need more citations? If you've got a business, and you're in Georgia, but there's a very similar business out in Utah, and neither one of you have a very good base of citations and information, Google's not going to know what's what, especially, even if you're at one location, even if you're in Georgia searching for Georgia, I've seen the other one come up if there's not much information about you. So
Yeah.
again, those third party reviews, sites that are trusted. So one of the things I've been telling clients for a while is, the Better Business Bureau is a trusted site. Google and AI look at it for authority and trust. And in the past, Google's manual review guidelines at one time had recommended Better Business Bureau to evaluate the reputation of a website. Now, it's no longer specifically says Better Business Bureau, but the AI and Google, they look at that as a trust factor. And a lot of times when I search for business, and if they have that Better Business Bureau profile, it'll a lot of times be on the first page of search.
Okay.
So I recently was looking through a business, Google search, AI. They had lots of great reviews, great reputation, everything, except for when it got to Better Business Bureau. There was a D- Better Business Bureau. I said, well, this is odd. What's going on? Went to Better Business Bureau and looked at it and saw that there was a complaint that hadn't been responded to. And so remember, this is very similar to Google's that, respond to all reviews, respond to complaints.
Yes.
Better Business Bureau is a bit different. And a lot of people think that it's what I hear a lot is, well, that's outdated. I'm not going to look at that. Well, Google and AI is looking at that. So basically, I talked to the business and, well, tell me what this is. Oh yeah, that was resolved and the customer was very happy. I said, well, what happened was the customer probably wrote that complaint. It was resolved, and then the customer didn't think to go update it, and the business didn't respond.
Okay.
And if you look at the Better Business Bureau website, it says, Better Business BBB ratings represent the BBB's opinion of how the business is likely to interact with its customers. They don't even look at BBB reviews. So I'm not saying go get a bunch of reviews on Better Business Bureau. I'm not saying to get them or not to get them, but it's not going to impact your BBB rating.
Okay.
So I told the business, I said, okay, stop everything. Let's go in, respond. Just state what happened, that you, and it was resolved and to the customer satisfaction. I honestly was not sure what I was expecting. I'm thinking a D-. I'm like, well, maybe hoping for a B. We'll see what happens. Within a week, it went from a D- to an A+.
Oh my gosh.
So you need to check and see, do you have any BBB complaints that you have not responded to? You need to watch for those. Typically, you will, if your business has a Better Business Bureau profile, make sure you can log into it so that you're signed up to get those emails and watch that. And again, this is what I'm talking about, is the free Better Business Bureau profile.
Okay.
But this was something I will say I completely did not expect to get this jump out of that rating.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
And so now when you do a Google search, it doesn't say that D- when you're searching for an AI, that's not there. You see the general, what everything else was showing, the positive, reviews.
Oh wow.
So, just by responding. So we talked earlier about you've got to respond correctly and in the best way you can to your Google reviews.
Right.
You need to do it to all the others and also Better Business Bureau.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a great tip. Yeah, because of
Yeah.
all of those, especially with how many people are using AI to do their research now, it's not taking days to make a decision on something, it's taking minutes, and all of those
Yeah.
concurrent searches are happening simultaneously, and it's pulling back all this information and all this sentiment about this business or these people. And
Mhm.
to now have that be something to where, oh, yep, this is all good, but there's this one thing over here that we're not really loving. And
Mhm.
it might even be the thing that AI just decides to throw out that business and not even show it to the human
Exactly.
because of that. He won't
Exactly.
even know that there was a problem.
And that's it, that a lot of businesses, they don't know, this one I was looking at, they had no idea that that was there because in their mind, they had talked to the client and had resolved it to the client's satisfaction.
Wow.
So, it's definitely you've gotta, watch what's going on and, and that was just a checking to see, what does Google search say and what does AI say about the business.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
gosh. Huh.
yeah.
Well, that
That was it was kind of one of those moments, so I was like, they responded to at the end of one week, and I came back Monday morning, and I'm like, "Let me see," and I was like, "What?"
wow.
Very, very, good surprise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it made you feel amazing. And I'm sure your client was also elated. I mean, I don't know how we couldn't be. That's just
Yeah, for sure.
super, super cool. Well, Trisha, this has been very enlightening, and I know that I've learned things here just in our talking, even above and beyond the talks that we've had in the past. So, just sincerely grateful to you being here, and also just you being a friend and colleague of mine and our agency. We just love being able to work with you, being able to connect with you, and us to serve our clients best. Um, what where can people find you if they want to learn more about the services that you offer? Like where are you on social, and what's your website? Like how can people connect with you and just continue the conversation?
Sure. So my website is yourbizwatchdog.com, and that's the easiest and best way to get in touch and schedule an appointment. I am not as active as I have been in the past on some socials, but LinkedIn, I'm going to start. I've been going on there and getting a lot of information, so I'll probably start being more active on LinkedIn for sure. So, so yeah, definitely check that out. My website has a lot of information and contact as well. And thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate this, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No, this has been great. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you to everybody that has tuned in for this. Again, if there's any questions that you have, we're here for you, and definitely reach out to Tricia to continue the conversation with any help that you might need. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next time.